Good evening or good afternoon, I suppose, today, ladies and gentlemen. This is Brock Beard from NASCAR.info coming at you during a race. We usually do our post-race show for those of you who are new here. I figured, well, with the rain delay and already no shortage of stuff to talk about, we may as well get a head start on that. I got the race on here in the background. We'll keep an eye out on that. Go ahead and cue me in, folks. I have it on mute here, so if anything else is going on with the delays there, looks like the last report there they showed from the track there seemed like they were actually making headway, and I guess they're determined to get those last 21 laps in. So probably what we'll do is we'll just keep the show going here until things start up. Maybe I'll even have it on in the background for the last couple of laps here, since unless we just get a ridiculous number of cautions. So a little bit of something different here for you guys over here at Behind the Wall. Thank you for tuning in here. We can talk about where to even to start. We have a complete mess on our hands from this entire weekend. And frankly, this was kind of the weather conditions I was thinking we were going to get last year when they moved the July, or I guess last year or the year before, when they moved the July race at Daytona to August. I guess it was when Jimmy Johnson was still active. So it's been a couple years here. Thankfully, I mean, these first couple of years, I mean, we saw pretty good races. I thought we saw pretty good racing for the first part of this one. But much like the Xfinity race way back on Saturday, weather rearing its ugly head, and of course, controversy not far behind. I'm seeing already so many things talking about who was leading, who was maintaining, minimum speed coming out of the wreck. But it's so much to unpack. Typically, I'd like to do the show here after a lot of this is unpacked, but I think that I don't know how much more clarification we're going to get on this today. So unofficially, so far, we are looking at 21 laps to go in the Coke Zero Sugar 400. Your race leader, according to the timing and scoring provided by NASCAR, and again, their official came out to confirm this, is Austin Dillon, who is the only driver to avoid the latest of a series of multi-car wrecks. This after what appeared to be a pop-up rainstorm in turn one, one that replays seem to indicate was not happening. How much rain is too much rain? That's something we could certainly address here at the same time. Yes, Austin Dillon so far looking to be able to be your transfer driver into the playoffs here, needing to win and make it in. One of several past Daytona winners that were in that position here as well. Kevin Harvick in the second spot. Landon Castle looking for, I'm not sure if that would be a career best, because I think he was maybe it would tie his career best because he had the 00 during the Justin Haley lightning strike one, and he was kind of in the mix during that one, was right in the mix. Cody Ware, this would absolutely be a career best for him and the Rick Ware Racing Team, looking at a fourth place run so far in the number 51. He actually got a little bit of damage there showing the replays, him and Todd Gilliland going into turns 1 and 2. Austin Cindric, who had lost the draft after Kyle Larson's engine problems at the very beginning of the race, showing in the 5th spot. Kyle Busch, Martin Truex Jr., BJ McLeod in the 8th spot, David Reagan in 9th, and Noah Gragson rounding out your top 10. Again, with 21 laps to go, the Coke Zero Sugar 400 still pending what may or may not be happening the rest of this afternoon. It's 11:23 a.m. here on the West Coast, so still the early afternoon on the East Coast here, and seeing how many more laps are coming in there. But at least, again, if we take the officials at their word, they're apparently trying to do their very best to get, I guess, like 14 or 15 cars that are even going to be able to run at the end of this. We have 16 cars on the lead lap at this very moment, but that includes Ricky Stenhouse Jr.'s car, which actually caught air during that last pileup in turn 1. I think Ryan Blaney was in it, or William Byron, or one of those other guys in the 2020 Daytona 500 had a similar situation where the car caught air and it was able to, keep going afterwards. This, of course, is a very different car from back then, so I don't know how that's going to play out with the 47 team. We'll certainly find out one way or the other if how things are going to be shaken out here. BJ McLeod, I mean, again, another driver that's looking to have a good run out of this race today, looking for an 8th place finish. This is where he had his first top 10 just last year, driving that, I believe it was a swamp buggies or alligator farm or some kind of thing. They had like kind of a reptilian scheme on the car last year and got a top 10. Josh Bilicki as well had a top 10 in that one after the disqualification of Chris Buescher. You may recall in that race last year. Unfortunately, Bilicki not in this race today. However, we'll see what his schedule looks like coming up. But one of his former rides there as well. Both Rick Ware cars in the top 10 just holds a candle to what we saw in the Saturday race too. I guess we can go into a discussion about that. But yeah, not exactly sure, where to pick everything else apart. Certainly concerned about the interview that Denny Hamlin gave on social media there, where he indicated that his whole body felt sore after an impact, and he wasn't even one of the ones that was actually hitting the wall head on. He was collected there by Daniel Suarez and some of the other ones there, kind of hitting a car in the door there, saying that his face hurt and his body hurt there. He still gave a good interview there, but clearly, very uncomfortable there. It makes me wonder, how many other drivers are really struggling with this at the same time. Hopefully, nobody else, but even one is certainly troubling in that case. It's I don't know. We're in a difficult situation here, folks, and certainly this isn't the first time that this has come up. I mean, I know there's been a lot of references, certainly to the 2001 All-Star race where there was rainstorm in the first corner, and everybody piled into it. Kevin Harvick, of course, still active in the Cup Series, certainly remembers that one very well. It seems like it's kind of that situation where this popped up and they couldn't quite have predicted it. Although obviously right from the start of today and with the forecast being what it was, rain had certainly been a consistent concern. It was just a matter of when it was going to be arriving at the track, or where, I suppose, the track being as big as it is. I know that certainly, and again, I think I'm sensing the broadcast is grappling with this at the same time too. I think it's very easy to certainly jump on the officials, and ultimately it is their call to draw a caution there, one way or the other. And obviously with these slick tires and at these speeds, it's just completely unsafe for them to be running it. I think that's where in the discussions that that have already kind of sprung up on this, I think that one thing that they should probably look into is automating some part of that service. I know that doesn't do anything in the short term. It's certainly nothing they could introduce next race or anything in the near future, but perhaps that's the best way to look at it, because again, I think the one thing to really keep in mind is that, and this is a year also where NASCAR was getting a lot of criticism for throwing cautions for no reason and making it too easy to throw cautions. You recall there were extra steps that were put in place for NASCAR officials there. So we're not dealing with the same setup that we've already had. But even if we did, you have spotters around the track. That's assuming the spotter notices there's rain and that immediately reports that over to the booth. And they do have that direct connection with the officials, the head official that would be able to throw the caution flag. So that message gets relayed. And then the official decides whether or not they're going to throw a caution, or even if it's an instant moment that they hit that button and that caution light comes out, you still got to slow these cars down. And, it all that takes time. So again, I think that maybe one thing that they can look at is, and especially, how quickly a rainstorm can turn into something very dangerous, is you're going to have to automate some part of this system. I don't see really any practical way to avoid this any other way. If that's going to be the situation, I think that's going to be a real problem. I think you're going to have a situation where some degree of that is going to be separated. And if that's not an attractive, option, I think we got, again, I know that automation has come up in the world of baseball when they're trying to talk about the issue of like umpires having, a degree of not, calling things correctly and having bad calls. And of course that could screw up a game very easily. I think we're dealing with something very similar here. And it's tradition that has kind of kept that human element in baseball. I'm not the most knowledgeable with baseball, but what I've been hearing about it, that particular element there. But I think in NASCAR, when we're talking about safety, when we're talking about how quickly these cars can get out of control and how dangerous these wrecks can be, especially how large, of a pileup this was. This took out basically all of the front contenders in this race. And on top of that, I'm sure there were other factors that were at play. It's going to be, it's a playoff cutoff race. They're trying to get the race in. They're trying to make it as fair as possible. Sometimes things are just snake bit, and that's the unfortunate deal there. But I do think that the time has probably come to really look at automating some part of the system, not with all cautions, but certainly with cautions for rain, where it is something that's sensitive, and set the tolerance for what it is. And I think that's the other, I think between now and whenever that moment is, I think that NASCAR really needs to understand, and they've had so many gray rules here. We're dealing with that at the same time, where there's the gray area about, like, cars reaching minimum speed and who is ranked where, and, we talk about the locking bumpers rule. We talk about the rules on this show all the time. They have to figure out what the tolerance is for rain. Is it just one drop? If you see one drop on a lens at any point of the track, do you throw the caution then? Is it a moment where it's concentrated in one part of the track? Is it a couple of drops? I mean, that's the thing that needs to be cleared up. There's too much latitude there. And maybe this would have got reported earlier if it wasn't the case. I mean, but if it's going to be more strict, you're going to also have situations where you're probably going to create a race that's probably going to be difficult to watch for other reasons. Maybe it's going to have too many cautions for rain. Maybe, and I guess this is something you could also look at if they end up automating some part of the of their protocol for throwing cautions at the same time. So, again, I don't blame people for being very critical of the NASCAR officials. Ultimately, the buck stops with them. They have 100% of the control over whether a race comes, whether a caution flag comes out and when it comes out. We've seen a lot of examples where some rules are not being enforced consistently. You think back to the window net issue that Ryan Blaney had at the All-Star race, and the rain that happened at the beginning of New Hampshire last year that ended up putting Kyle Busch in last place. I think that, but again, I think that because there's that safety element, I think that maybe there's something that they can look into. So I'm kind of curious what your guys' thoughts are on that. I think it's just, it's unfortunate. The way that this is played out. I don't blame them for trying to get the race in. I think at this point their die is cast. I mean, they've now waited so long. They've looked like they've made a little bit of progress from what I'm last seeing here on this. Luckily they started this as early as they did. I'm willing to applaud them certainly for that. I think it was good that they started this race as early as possible, not just to give yourself the entire day should something like this happen. Obviously the track has lights, so you don't have to really worry about that. But also, of course, the hot weather, they tried this, 2014 with Eric Almirola's first win, kind of a different situation there, but they tried to get it back in and they started the race early there too. So, it's hard to tell. It's hard to tell, but I mean, I think these are the questions that need to kind of be looked at, going forward as to what the problem is and what the exact approach is. I'm not sure how much of an issue this whole minimum speed thing is, where who is going through the wreck and who is ranked where. I think that's just kind of a little bit of a distraction. I think there's something else. I think that the first thing that they got to look at is their rain protocol and trying to make that a little bit more reliable and understanding what the rule is. Because otherwise, yeah, you're going to have this again. You don't want to have this happen too many more times. The other corollary to this also is the, what's going on with the next gen car and how it handles in some of these accidents, going back to Denny Hamlin's interview there a bit earlier and, what had happened there. I mean, whether it's high speed or low speed impacts, and how these drivers are affected by it. I'd love to learn more about this. I have actually reached out to NASCAR looking to get some more information on that. And they've been very, they've directed me to their person on that. And I'm sure I'm not the only person that's been in contact with them trying to learn more about this car. Because that's one thing that always feels like from one week to the next on this show, I feel like I'm just kind of grappling and having to kind of guess, how this car is operating and what issues it's having. And I don't want to have to be in that position because I don't want to jump to the wrong conclusions here. So hopefully we're going to get some more information on that. But I mean, again, it's just bizarre. It's bizarre. There's just a lot that's kind of up in the air, and hopefully some more transparency will kind of result from this as well. Looking at the last place battle, fairly open and shut in both of these races this weekend. Kyle Larson being your last place finisher for today. First time that the driver that was awarded the pole, yes, we had qualifying and practice both rained out. So he didn't actually earn the pole the traditional way. But regardless, the driver classified first has not finished last in a Cup Series points race at Daytona since 1983, when Cale Yarborough, that year winning his first of 2 consecutive Daytona 500s, finished last with an engine failure in the opening laps, driving the number 28 Chevrolet and dropping out in that one. In this case here, Larson with an engine failure at the beginning does not appear to be, at least from the latest report, not the same situation that he had at Talladega last year. I believe it was last year because it was in the 5 car, where they left a protective shield in front of the radiator at Talladega, and the engine ended up blowing up very early on. In fact, actually, the most recent last place finish that Larson had earlier this year at Darlington was also an engine failure. So kind of interesting to see Hendrick grapple with this a little bit. I'm not sure if we're seeing kind of the return to what we saw out of Jimmy Johnson's team during the early years of the chase, where he'd be locked into the 10-race championship, and they'd use some of these races down the stretch to kind of experiment with different things. Hard to really tell, especially since teams can't really enter like extra cars that easily or that profitably with the charter system in place. Maybe something like that's happening. It just seems a little unusual for Hendrick Motorsports in particular to have any kind of engine problems, especially at a super speedway where they've just been so good for most of their career. But regardless, Larson looking for his second last place finish of the season and the 10th of his Cup Series career, again, pending the results of post-race inspection whenever this race is actually going to be completed. The first time the number 5 has actually finished last in a Cup Series race at Daytona, and the first time, really, the only other time the number 5 had ever finished last in really any other Cup event at Daytona. The dual race number 2 in 1998, Terry Labonte was the outside pole sitter that year for the Daytona 500 that was ultimately won by Dale Earnhardt. Labonte actually parked his car in the early laps. The results actually showed quit as the reason that he fell out of the race. Very common in a lot of races at Daytona, especially if you've had drivers that are on the front row that want to save their fastest cars out there, not really willing to kind of put it through its paces there during that session. A little bit less common in other situations. I mean, this year we saw a situation where basically both the open drivers that were locked in on speed ended up at the back of the field. I guess that's been a little bit more common in recent years, but regardless, kind of a different situation there for the number 5 team. Christopher Bell, Brad Keselowski, both of them involved in one of the other accidents off of turn 2. William Byron and Ross Chastain completing the bottom 5, again, unofficially, pending the results of this race and of technical inspection here. We're just now seeing the broadcast again here. Looks like they're still running the Air Titans on the banking and not seeing a bunch of water spraying everywhere. So I don't know. I mean, they're determined. I mean, kudos to them. I mean, I'm sure tickets to Daytona aren't cheap, and people already had to wait all night to try to see this race. And even if there's only going to be a few cars left, it only takes a couple to really put on an interesting show. But again, if they are going to keep going with this, hopefully the rain continues to hold off, because it's going to be bizarre. I'm not sure what we're gonna see down the stretch here, or much less who's going to be left in this. I think somebody was posting some tweets earlier showing like how few drivers actually still left or even in the win and you're in position now. Dylan's certainly one of those, but other drivers that are either declared for Xfinity points, guys like Landon Castle, or guys that are already eliminated from, mathematically, like Cody Ware, for example. They're probably be perfectly happy for the race to just wrap up where it is. The broadcast also seems to be pretty urging of this race wrapping up. I think Rick Allen sounds like he's got someplace to be here from the way that he sounds in the booth today. But given kind of all the craziness we've had this weekend, I guess I can hardly blame him at that point. So we'll see what's happening. Put on rain tires and run the road course tonight. I don't know. Yeah, I mean, who knows? But I was talking with Last Bro. He was kind of thinking like, okay, well, maybe they're just going to, if they lock it up here, and just give it to Dylan, why don't they just put Blaney in too, and then just eliminate an extra driver at Darlington? But I don't know. I don't see that happening. I think it's just, they're probably, I don't know. It seems like we're playing a little off script here, so it's hard to figure out. Irvin Alvarado, I saw your super chat there. Thank you so much on that. Let me make sure I get your comment on that one for sure. Irvin's comment here. NASCAR made the risk of moving this race from July to August. July was less of rain month than this month. Selfishly, I prefer July Daytona as it is easy for me to vacation like my first time in 2019. I mean, that's a fair point, and certainly in Florida, I've never really visited there, but, just watching it on the news, I think August in Florida, I think hurricane season. I think, having just really, really rough weather. And I know that that's kind of a moving target a little bit. It can be, unpredictable in its own ways here. But we did have a lot of races in the July race, especially the last few years before they moved this, where it seemed like rain was always getting in the way of qualifying, always getting in the way of practice. And of course, now in the years since then, the Daytona 500, I mean, the legend of Bill France weather, the concept that the Daytona 500 is never cut short by rain or rain delayed, that's completely out the window now. It seems like it's almost a yearly tradition these last few weeks. I think we talked about that a little bit last week with what happened in the 2020 race, for example. But it's a difficult situation. I like the idea of it being in the 4th of July. I mean, there's a lot of tradition there. Looking at the old statistics, of course, it used to be a lot of times that it was run on the 4th of July, no matter what day of the week that was. And that was kind of an interesting sense to it. Of course, Richard Petty's 200th win, most famously in front of President Reagan. All these races are on the 4th of July. It's only recently that it's kind of become, moved around. Sometimes on July 1st or the 7th. And now, of course, with it being moved into the playoff cutoff race. I think the one thing that's nice about having Daytona be at this part of the season, if you have to have the playoffs, which again, I'm not a big fan of, is you're going to create a situation where, whoever's going to win their way into the playoffs, if they do at the last minute, they're probably not going to be one of the top contenders for the championship. I think it'd be a little bit unusual. So why not have it just be a complete crapshoot here at the end? I guess you could look at other tracks of it, a possibility, maybe Atlanta, for example. The fact that they've now mutilated that track into a quasi super speedway, and now they have 2 dates. Why not spread those out a little bit more, move it into August? What that would mean for the 400-mile race of Daytona, I don't know. I'm still kind of the mind that every track should just have 1 date and kind of make it that much easier to kind of feature the way that track operates and everything. I would stink to lose a second race at Daytona or a second race at Bristol or a second race at Darlington. But I think the trade-off would be worth it, having a more diverse array of different tracks. I think that NASCAR is kind of working within the restrictions of, combination of tradition and just the limits of the schedule that we've had so far. Some of the experiments I think have been more successful than others. Does that mean that, we're going to run a whole bunch of identical 1.5 miles again? I certainly hope not. It's another thing to kind of maybe consider there. Replaying the race right now, they got up to lap 43 on the replay of the broadcast here. For those of you who haven't, seen the race to this point, I thought it was a little bit funny. Actually, somebody was tweeting that even the replay of the race started at noon or before noon. So, it's certainly, I think if anything else is taken from today, the possibility of starting a race much earlier in the day, especially in the case of a rain delay, maybe that's something that's going to be embraced more at other tracks. I think it's probably more the particulars of this being not only the playoff cutoff race, but also the hot weather in South Florida is probably much more the reason. Dale Jarrett and Kyle Petty were talking about the fact that this race used to be, of course, being run much earlier in the day too. So that's one to talk about. Yeah, Rusty Ralston, thank you for your super chat as well. Ugh, that's all I can say. Yeah, I hear you, man. I mean, it's it's unfortunate because I think, and especially rewatching a lot of this earlier, I'm kind of reminded of like the Talladega race we had last year, the last fall, where we had a lot of great racing. It's just unfortunate the weather played a hand and just kind of wreaked havoc with it. I think we were having some fantastic racing right up until even really up until that last wreck. Really, we had a lot of good contenders up there that were really going to make something happen. Suarez was kind of throwing his hat into the ring there. Chris Buescher was coming back from the contact that he had with Kyle Larson. Eric Jones had one of the best cars out there, all of them in it. But unfortunately, all of them in exactly the wrong place at the wrong time. And if we do have to actually get this race going again, it's going to be unfortunate to not have a lot of those teams up here. Yes, I'm absolutely happy that a lot of these other teams may get a good chance to get a good run. I'm disappointed that this broadcast is not really reaching out to Cody Ware and some of these other guys. I don't know if maybe they just don't want to talk, because maybe it could be, I'll give them the benefit of the doubt, maybe it's a situation much like with Austin Dillon where they're still in race mode and they're not even going to talk about the possibility of having a great run. If they do end up calling this race, or it is run to completion, hopefully they still get interviewed, because that's gold on the ground for these teams, especially trying to get their sponsors any attention. I know Slap Shoes was mentioning this on his Twitter feed just a little while ago here. So, hopefully that's going to be something to look at. We'll certainly talk about the Xfinity race. I think, I'm not sure, let me kind of get the Pockrass feed up here too and talk about that, because that was absolutely another example of having a race where the little guy did well after just complete chaos here. Pockrass posting 8 minutes ago, still raining on parts of the track, still to be determined how long it would take to dry since it is still raining in spots. Again, this being posted about 8 minutes ago by Bob Pockrass on his. It still doesn't look all that promising, whereas before, when the race started, it seemed like there were a lot of storms that were kind of moving on either side of the track. The radar here is kind of showing things kind of more or less sitting in the immediate area and moving a lot slower, and unfortunately, that's kind of the way things look here. I fully expected they were going to call something here before noon, or noon Pacific time, but we're pretty close to that now. So I'm not sure what's going to happen on that end, but I guess we'll all find out together here, folks. So let's go back into the Xfinity race, which now basically ended from late Saturday night into early Sunday morning. Congratulations, Jeremy Clements. Had to bring out the old 51 shirt here. Congratulations to him on getting his second career Xfinity Series win, his first win 5 years to the day of his amazing win at Road America, where he and Matt Tifft were trading bumps and spins off the course there and pulling off the victory. Was the result of, again, another series of crashes, not really related to the rain, but just related to just a tremendous amount of aggression. And in that race, we actually saw, again, much like this one here, at least in this sense, we had a lot of very clean racing after Sammy Smith's wreck at the very beginning of it. A lot of close calls, a lot of times that it could have been a big pile up, but then from about 16 laps to go onward, and then 18 laps rather, past regulation, it turned into a pretty sizable mess, to say the least. A triple overtime finish, during which Clements had the win. But again, have to give a shout out to several drivers that were in the mix there, not the least of which, of course, being Timmy Hill, who was battling for last place in the opening laps when Sammy Smith's wreck happened, started 37th on the grid of 38, was running 37th for a good amount of the opening stage of the race there, finally started kind of inching his way up there, and then found himself in a position where he was right behind Austin Hill on that last restart. Him and his teammate J.J. Yaley in the number 66. 66 had significant damage to the nose of his car, whereas Timmy's was one of the few that actually didn't have hardly any damage on it, and that came in handy at the perfect time. Unfortunately, Austin Hill, I still think this is a little bit of a controversial decision there, stayed out in front. I mean, I know it's hard to give up. I mean, certainly if you have like an overtime finish and you just hope you can stretch the car the rest of the way. Had some kind of an electrical issue. It was speculated that it was something going on with the fuel. He had been out there longer than anybody else really among the leaders. But of course, Austin, the winner at February at Daytona and winning it again at Atlanta, has really kind of shown himself to be a really good super speedway driver in his very early part of the full-time series in the Xfinity series. I think that really cost Timmy Hill the win when they checked up and the 21 car kind of bogged down. Although, I mean, Clements had such a big jump on that final restart that maybe that balanced out and he was able to get a kind of good run on it. It's possible AJ Allmendinger, even with the damage that he had sustained to that point after his multiple incidents, may not have played out exactly the same way. But regardless, Hill able to edge Allmendinger at the very end there to finish in the second spot. I mean, that's huge for Carl Long's team. I know that it was mentioned on social media there that I believe there was only 6 top 10 finishes for Carl Long's team in the Xfinity series, and then 2 of them were accomplished just on early Sunday morning there with, again, the second place run for him and J.J. Yaley coming home ultimately in the 9th position there. Sage Karam, very early in his Xfinity career, finishing in the 5th spot, right behind Brandon Brown in 4th. Great run for the Alpha Prime team. They've been kind of just having every kind of luck this year with any driver that's in there. But it's good to see them get a good performance there after starting 24th on the grid. Brandon Brown, I mean, your heart breaks for him because, I mean, they reunited with the Larry's Lemonade sponsor after all the ridiculous stuff that happened after that, that Talladega interview last year. Good to see that driver and team reunite. They were looking to kind of make something happen if they could win the race and have him run the 68 car more often. We've seen Brandon Brown run for other teams because they just don't have the backing to run the rest of the season. That's why Chris Wright had signed on to make 8 of these remaining 10 races that they're going to run this year after Wright lost his effort at the Truck Series team. It's a heartbreaker. I mean, you would think for a family-owned team they can make something work out, but dollars and cents, they got to make sure that they can keep the lights on and offset the cost as best they can. But unfortunately, Brown just coming up just short there. Seemed to have a good run at the end there. Things just stalled out, and him finishing in the 4th position there. Still a good run for him and the team, but not exactly what they were looking for, certainly from the interview that you saw there. Alex Labbe finishing the 8th spot, coming back from at least one of the spins. Kyle Sieg had lost the hood on the number 38 car for the RSS racing effort there, still finishing in 10th. His first career top 10 finish. Very impressive to see out of the number 38 car there. So that was good to see. Jesse Iwuji, have to give a big applause for him there in that case there. Oh my goodness, they're showing the replay of, I believe it's Suarez in the in car, just seeing how much he's moving around during those impacts there. Still looks like they're pretty close to drying the track. Pit road looks a lot better now as they're showing the replay. They got the Air Titans lined up in the tri-oval. I guess they're going to look to do this again. I'm not sure how many fans are still there, but kudos to them. They better get like pit passes or something out of this after this is over with. I know they did that for one of those other races a while back. So Jesse Iwuji, though, I mean, going back to him, I mean, I, for one, of course, have been one of many people that has said, look, I think he's a good team owner. He's got a good program that's kind of come together. Maybe driving isn't really the best thing for him. He's never finished better than 17th in an Xfinity race. I believe it's 17th at a truck race. Hadn't finished better than 22nd in an Xfinity race. And yes, it was a result of many multi-car pileups, just like any of the other drivers in front of him, Timmy Hill, J.G. Yaley, and the others there. But again, there's something to be said for being in the right place at the right time and getting a good run there. Just barely missed a shot to top 10 finish. That would have been great for them. Kyle Weatherman, of course, has done a great job for Jesse Iwuji's team this year, getting them some good qualifying and race finishes. I hope that does continue. I think that's probably going to be the long-term strategy for the 34 team, unless they find other drivers there that can kind of get the same results. But again, certainly for Iwuji and for, again, apparently he did a military initiative relating to what happened in Afghanistan last year. Definitely, good to see him get a good performance on top of that. So kudos to him on that. Myatt Snyder just behind him there in the 12th spot. Obviously constant replays being played this entire week after the wreck that he had back on the back straightaway there at Daytona. Good to see him come back there and get a solid finish on the other side of this. And Joey Gase tied his season best run at Talladega, where he also finished in 16th. He drove the McGruff Crime Dog Ford. I almost said Chevrolet there. Ford for the number 35 there, finishing in the 16th spot. So kudos to him there. But there were that was all a consequence of many grinding multi-car accidents. A very costly night for a lot of teams, not just the big teams, but the small ones as well. A couple other drivers that very easily could have been in this conversation were David Starr, your defending NASCAR Xfinity Series champion. 08 team seemed like they really were going to have a shot at maybe getting the top 10 out of this. Maybe not a contender for the win, but the SS Greenlight effort really kind of gets some good cars out there, especially, of course, Cole Custer winning the Fontana race earlier this year. But Starr ended up being involved in one of those incidents, got stuck in the grass there, ends up finishing in the 31st spot. Another one that comes to mind, Matt Mills. Matt Mills, much like Jesse Iwuji, a driver that seems to just always be struggling. BJ McLeod's team has just had an awful year, and it's terrible to see out of him. And I think BJ is really trying to, make something happen over at that Cup program there with Matt Tifft. But things have been difficult there too. I mean, they're the front runners very clearly in the NASCAR Cup Series championship. But I was really excited to see Mills up there and trying to get a good run. It maybe have an outside shot at a top 10 there and try to get a good performance. Unfortunately, it was just absolutely in the wrong place at the wrong time. He basically had a wreck cleared. Car slid right in front of him and took him out of the race there. He ends up finishing back in the 24th position. And despite running 10 laps past a regulation there, I mean, these overtime finishes were just brutal. And the wrecks just seem to just keep getting bigger and bigger in that sense. Another driver that was very clearly in the mix, but definitely was there that night, was Anthony Alfredo. Old Tony Sauce had Daniel Hemrick set up dead to rights, going for the lead there. Unfortunately, the two of them made contact, ended up with a big mess off of turn 4. He couldn't escape from that. But I think he distinguished himself very well. I mean, the Our Motorsports team has itself struggled a lot this year. I know they're a little bit in a different tier than maybe teams like BJ McLeod or Jesse Iwuji's or Motorsports Business Management, but still, I mean, a good run going for the number 23 team this year. I mean, their teammate Brett Moffitt parted ways with the 0-2, and they've had to kind of figure out what's going on over there. And it was mentioned online, and I have to agree, expanding that program to 3 cars might not have been the best decision. And I think they've been stretched a bit thin. We've seen a lot of mechanical issues that Jeb Burton's been dealing with this year, the 27. And then, of course, he was involved in another crash in this Daytona race here as well. Lots of bad luck for JR Motorsports. I'm sure whenever that meeting is going to be frustrating. Everybody left with basically the steering wheel at the end of it, including Noah Gragson, who had a pretty big hit on the back straightaway that just atomized the number 9 car there. Justin Haley seemed like he was going to actually make something happen there in his return to the Xfinity Series. I was looking at him to be a real favorite to win that particular race if he could get the car through inspection. I thought that was going to be the bigger issue. I think we talked about this a little bit on last week's show. Bringing the number 14 out there to temporarily expand the fleet of the calling efforts. It seems their team effort, structure really is conducive to super speedway racing. And at least, if not guarantees a win for one of them, at least one of them is going to be certainly a factor in the finish of the race there. Unfortunately, Haley collected in one of those accidents there too. I'm not familiar with the sponsor that this Dabin store company on there, but I really like the paint scheme. It kind of reminded me of the Mystery Machine car that Corey LaJoie ran at Martinsville a couple years ago. So it's good to see some decent paint schemes out there. But yeah, looking down through the rankings here, a lot of drivers further down the rankings. It's unfortunate qualifying got rained out because, again, there were 43 cars for 38 spots. You had 5 teams that were sent home, including Josh Williams initially, who is going to be, this is going to be his reunion with DGM, with Mario Gosselin's team. I still think if that's going to keep going here, it sounds like it is, that he's going to run the rest of this year. We could be seeing him have some good runs. Hopefully, the Roval, for example, I think he had some great runs with Gosselin there. And that's something that maybe could still happen down the stretch. But he did get cycled back into the number 5 car in place of Patrick Emmerling, who himself was replacing Natalie Decker after a situation with the sponsor on the number 5, apparently a CBD sponsorship that was not approved by NASCAR in time. It's not that it wasn't outright approved, it's just the timeline didn't work out with the last minute deal of Decker being in the car. So a lot of different names ended up on that car before the car ended up on the hook at the end of the race there. Williams in the 29th spot there on the Xfinity Series race. John Hunter Nemechek, that was the other storyline that unfortunately didn't come to pass. Looked like we were going to get Joe Nemechek back in an Xfinity race for the first time in quite a while. Joe, during his heyday, was one of the best super speedway drivers in the Xfinity Series, winning races at Daytona and Talladega, looking to race against his son. They did a great picture earlier in the week to kind of reenact the cover where Joe Nemechek was holding John Hunter in his arms back when John Hunter was an infant, and now them side by side, and of course both of them racing and looking to be teammates for the Sam Hunt effort. But unfortunately, even with his past championship there, that did not override the past winner provisional that was given to Justin Haley. I know there was a lot of confusion on that, but I applaud. Of course, Bob Pockris was right on the spot there to kind of break down that story as to why that was exactly happening there. So, yeah, that was kind of the different situation there. But unfortunate that he couldn't get in the field there. Also, I think probably one of the scariest hits that we saw during the Xfinity race was certainly the wreck between Sheldon Creed and Joe Graff Jr., an impact hard enough to bend the roof on Sheldon Creed's car. That was a very scary situation there. Creed ending up in the 36th spot, Graf in 37th, and part of the bottom 5 there. John Hunter Nemechek involved in the same incident. Sam Mayer eliminated a little bit later, rounding out the bottom 5 in the 34th position there. So a different situation for those guys. But again, you know, it's unfortunate that they had so many big wrecks. A lot of teams are going to have to put a lot of cars back together here, big teams as well as the small ones. Didn't get a really good shot of Bailey Curry's car when he had the Alka-Seltzer sponsorship return again. I believe he ran it earlier. I think it was at Michigan or one of those other races earlier this summer. Only saw a glimpse of his car before he was collected in one of those wrecks in turn 3 and finished further back in the lineup there. Yeah, just kind of looking at other list here too. Ryan Sieg, that's another driver that was really kind of going for the lead there. I mean, how many times have we said this, that Sieg is just getting close to getting that first win, especially in this situation where he's trying to make the playoffs. This, of course, not being a cutoff race for the Xfinity Series. That's still further down the line. But still creating a difficult situation where he's really got to kind of find a way to make the cut there at the same time. But a little bit of the good, a little bit of the bad. You know, again, kudos to NASCAR for trying to get the race in and run it to completion, although it was kind of getting a little insane where you're just running out of cars. And I really wasn't sure who exactly was going to be left over at the end of this thing. But again, it really highlighted a lot of good teams. Kudos to a lot of the media that was there at the track. Just about all the drivers that really pulled surprising runs got some kind of interview from a lot of the media that's there. I mean, no doubt. I mean, Daytona is going to have a big media presence there to begin with. But I'm glad that drivers like Timmy Hill and JJ Yaley and these other, and Ryan Vargas, haven't even mentioned Vargas. The 6th place run for him, that was great too. I know he was emotional because his family wasn't there with him. But kudos to him there on that. 36 to 6th, his best run since that run in the TikTok car at Texas in 2020, where he was kind of working his way through the pack, and Tommy Joe Martins was too. Great job for him, and good job featuring another sponsor. I mean, we usually see, of course, those JD Motorsports cars always running the bright red paint schemes. Not used to seeing a white car of all colors there for the JD Motorsports one, but National Metering Services jumped on board with Vargas at the right time. Hopefully that's the beginning of something new for him, because in a lot of these recent races, we've seen Vargas really have to share that ride with other drivers, including Cup drivers. Like Ty Dillon's been in that car a couple times on the road courses. So we'll see if things change around on that end there. So looking further back, I think we've covered most of the stories from that one there too. Let's see here. We can do our trivia section here at the same time. Let's see here. Let me kind of get this pulled up. Have this in the background. I mean, I could cue off you guys here if you hear anything else on this situation. Alrighty. So let's go into this. If you guys have any other questions, if you guys have any other questions on the races from the Cup Series and the Xfinity Series, we'll certainly cover that as well. We'll play it by ear if they get this going. Again, last shot of the track there. Look, I'm amazed they're trying it. I'm amazed they're actually made as much progress they had. I think these 20 laps are probably, if they get them in, I think it's probably going to go by pretty quick with how few cars they have, but never, I mean, as I'm almost reluctant to say that after we saw Jeremy Clements win there in the Xfinity Series race. I mean, never underestimate how many cars they could wad up in any single wreck. We've certainly seen some pretty big ones here in this one today, but we'll talk about that as well. So yeah. But so we'll see what's going on here, and we'll find out the situation. Hang on, we almost had a guest on the show here, so I'm gonna drop him a text here in the meantime. Race isn't restarted yet, but it's getting pretty dry. They're replaying the start of the race from earlier. Okay, make sure that text goes through, and we'll get, okay, cool. So hopefully they figure this out pretty soon. So we'll find out what's going on here. So anyway, folks, we'll do our trivia segment. I do have a couple things for show and tell. I also haven't talked about the Buddy Arrington video. Big thanks to you guys for supporting that video posted this week. I know for a lot of you guys, well, I mean, basically all of you guys, you've been waiting for more content on the channel. I'm very excited to say that not only is that video up, but I'm almost done with the next video that I have planned on this one. I was actually just about finished with that last night. I want to kind of tweak it a little bit, and I hope to get that up this week. Included in that, again, are some other excellent pictures from Brian Hallman's collection. I hope you enjoyed checking out that in the Arrington video, because Hallman just had a tremendous collection of all the bizarre Chryslers and Dodges that Arrington ran in his career. Very rare shots. A lot of them I just never seen before. So kudos to him. I see you in the chat here, Brian. Thank you so much again for your hard work on that, and also on the next video too, because that's going to be up here pretty soon. So we're again really enjoy bringing up these different stories. Certainly things kind of changed a bit on the upload schedule with the news about both Buddy Arrington and Neil Castles passing at the beginning of this month. That's why I've kind of moved those up on the schedule. Well, I guess it's not really a spoiler at this point. The next video is indeed going to be on Neil Soapy Castles. That's going to be the next produced video on this channel, and I hope to have that available this week. Those of you who are at the $5 and up levels of my Patreon will get to see that video first before it goes public. And that's the plan on that end. And again, big thanks to Brian for tremendous collection of pictures. I was thinking that was Soapy was going to be too early in NASCAR history for his collection, but it absolutely was not. So I think you guys are really going to enjoy learning much more about another veteran in the sport here, sadly no longer with us, but I hope to certainly do that justice there, because I really enjoyed doing the Arrington video. I've been meaning to do that one for a while. I think that, again, driver with all these owner drivers for that period. I mean, certainly from JD McDuffie or Jimmy Means or these other drivers we've talked about here, they just have such unique personalities and unique traits and unique cars. And I think that's always been, the kind of little bit of a spice of life at the end of the field here that makes it interesting. You have your big teams, you have your superstars, you have your champions, and you have these other guys that are out there. It's sad we don't really see too much of that in Cup. I mean, thankfully you got BJ McLeod out there and the Rick Ware team and programs like that. And then you got a couple open efforts like the Hesberg group trying to break their way in. More power to them. Because they're the last vestiges of what a lot of these drivers were back then. And I think it's what's made the Xfinity series so much more attractive lately, is that you have a lot of these programs that, used to be those guys in Cup and have to kind of find their way around in these other series. Unfortunately, we don't see Morgan Shepherd's team out there, but certainly guys like Mike Harmon and Jimmy Means' efforts and others from there. So we'll find out. Let's see. There we go. Just keeping them update on that. So yes, next field filler video, Matt Zenny. Yes, that is actually the next video I'm working on. I hope to, after the Neil Castles video, the long-awaited Stanton Barrett episode. I know I keep teasing it all the time like it's giving you the George R.R. Martin treatment, but there's been a few extra steps in that one. Luckily, the script is done. The videos are collected. Brian's provided plenty of a ton of great pictures for that one as well. Everything is all set up. I just need to get the final thumbs up from Stanton on the script. I'm going to get a hold of him this week here. As soon as he gets the thumbs up and make whatever edits need to be made, that'll be ready to record. And once it's recorded, these usually come together pretty quickly, not instantly, but it's definitely, we're past like the 80% mark at that point. So that's kind of where we are. And then once that episode's up, I actually have another Field Fillers episode that's going to be coming up in short order after that. So, and I hope that maybe not released at the same time, but pretty close together as well. At least, I'd like it to be as close together as these first two videos are going to be, because it's going to be really good. So we got a lot of content coming up for you here on the channel. As I mentioned with Buddy Arrington, I showed this sticker in the video. I actually picked this up on eBay a while back. This is actually a reprint of it here. I found this a while back from the Paper Cars group there on eBay. They always have some great old school stuff here. And I wanted to make a reprint of it to put on my car, but the site that makes these has a 10 item limit. So I figured I'd put the extra ones on eBay there. So if you guys are interested in that, free shipping. If you want one of these, it's about a 6-inch long sticker here. Has the old direct connection logo on it. I thought the original was in fantastic shape. So that allowed these to be produced. This is produced by Sticker Mule, which is my latest decal provider here. And I only have a few of these here. So if you guys are interested, check out the eBay page on that, and you can check that out as well. So we have those on there. And then I have another thing here for our show and tell segment here in just a little bit. Oh, I thought we had another update on what was going on here. So yeah, so we'll have we'll do a trivia segment here as we wait this out. I'm not sure if you guys have heard anything new on this. I guess I could check the Pocris tweet list here on that, and so we could find that out. And let's see. Okay, it's 33 minutes ago. Okay, well, Pocris is doing one of his Fast Thoughts videos, and he's standing out in the open, and it doesn't look like it's raining there, so that's promising. Hopefully things are kind of getting on the way, but I don't see... Oh, some haulers already leaving, people that were in the wrecks. So they show not Bowman, Byron's hauler leaving the track here. This was 43 minutes ago. Obviously, any of the teams that are eliminated, and that's quite the long list at this point. Yeah, there's not really any reason to stick around, I guess, unless NASCAR calls them for inspection, but I guess that would be a different situation here. Alrighty, so we'll go and do some Trivial Pursuit questions here on the show. I'm glad I decided to start this earlier. I'd hate for you guys to have to use all of your day up here for waiting through this delay and then doing the race, the show afterwards. So I hope you're okay with us continuing to do this here a little bit out of order, but we'll figure this out from here. I might actually, Last Pro may be coming up here if we get the race back going, so I may actually cut the show off at that point. I don't think we'll have a lot of people watching here in the background, or maybe I'll at least mute the mic or something, and we'll have that in the background. Well, we'll figure that out. I mean, if you guys are up for it, what I can do, if anything really crazy, or I guess something, well, if like something crazy probably will happen at the end, we get an unusual winner, I'm going to have to comment on that. Maybe we'll just put the show on pause, put the loading screen up or something, and then at the very end of it, finish up with like a brief discussion of the finish. That's probably what we'll do, and we'll wrap up the show that way. But again, assuming they keep going, we don't know that yet. So again, trivia segment here for this tonight. Categories are NASCAR, pits, teams, tracks, drivers, and the wild card. Those are your categories. Once again, they are NASCAR, pits, teams, tracks, drivers, and the wild card. Those are your categories. You can check that out. So we'll pull this up here in the meantime. Yeah, it looks pretty. Yeah, look at it. We're starting to see a little bit of, is that a little bit of sunlight, or is that just another dark cloud? It's hard to, I guess that depends if you're an optimist or a pessimist as to what we got there. Let's see here. Alrighty. Hang on here. This. If you're interested in the stickers, I'll drop the chat, drop in the chat there the link to the eBay page there, so you have those if you are interested. Again, big thanks to those of you in the Patreon as well. We actually had a new member join this week, so big thanks to Michael. Hope he's okay. Well, just gonna leave the first name there alone. So thank you there very much for joining up this week. I have to make a little update to the contingency decal of names there at the end of the video there for that. If you're interested in bonus content here, as well as the NASCAR films and the videos that I do over with NASCAR Man, best way to do that is to join the Patreon. If you're unable to join the Patreon, next best thing is just keep sharing the videos on this channel. I know I get all these comments on there, and I'm really flattered when people are saying like, okay, why doesn't this channel have more subscriptions? It comes from the grassroots there, folks. Like, if more people see the videos, the more people are going to want to see more of them. But I got to do what I got to do on my end and just put more stuff out there that's going to be worth watching. So I certainly plan to be doing that there as well. The Judo Joker, thank you for your super chat here as well. Blaney appears to be in on points if the race restarts and overtakes the DNF cars. Truex is in if it ends now. Playoff format is fine. Everything is fine. Yeah. I take it. That's interesting. I hadn't been listening to that from the feeds there, but that's That's unfortunate. But again, as we see in the last car battles, if you're still running, if the car is still going, versus if you're just completely eliminated in some just grinding wreck, that could be the difference. How many last place battles have we seen that are settled in just the last couple of laps? But unfortunately, today, it looks like that could very well be the situation, that we may have a driver, one or the other, that misses the show, not just because of rain, not just because of a wreck, but because of a decision to run these last couple of laps at the very end of it. I mean, at this point here with NASCAR, they're damned if they do, they're damned if they don't. I mean, it's going to be a challenging week for them here with everything that's happened on this. And I know that's not what they want going into the playoffs this year. And hopefully we still get some of the good racing that we had earlier in this race replicated in the, because I think it's been overall a really good season. I think there's a lot that, remains to be fixed, certainly with the next gen car. But I take your point there, Judo Joker. Yeah, it's unfortunate that it's going to come down to it. I was always wondering if the Championship 4 was going to be in a situation like that, where you had a couple drivers that were going to be multiple laps down, and then, maybe, they end up like 5 laps down, but they're going to still stay in the race because they're championship contenders and they clear the crash clock. And then maybe the top 2 that are still running and trying to go for the championship, they wreck each other. And then you have this situation where these guys are kind of closing the gap a little bit. Maybe they're, 100 laps down, and the wreck happens with 200 to go. And then suddenly you got this situation here where they're catching up, and then who's going to get ahead of who? That's the situation I'm waiting for. That's where the NASCAR championship and the Cup Series championship kind of cross paths, and you're going to have just the craziest garage race out there, and then they're going to have to make a replica diecast with half a car out there. That's the kind of thing that, I don't know if that's going to be possible at Phoenix because the race is so short. That's why I think the championship race should be a lot longer, not to mention probably at Homestead, because I think they've put on more than enough great shows out there to earn that, including races with very low attrition where people have to really settle it on track. But I think that would be another one to certainly look at there too. Let's see. Did we do did I say the categories already? I think I did for the, for that. Oh yes. Okay. I do see that. So, thank you, Beast of Metal. If you can keep an eye on which categories you guys are interested in. Again, I'll read it off one more time if anybody new has come in here. No, we've got about the same size group from before, so I'll read them again. The categories, once again, are NASCAR, pits, teams, tracks, drivers, and the wild card. Those are your categories: NASCAR, pits, teams, tracks, drivers, and the wild card. So those are your categories, and we'll do this. So without further ado, the stickers weren't my show and tell segment here. I do have something else for that. So let me bring this out here for you guys. So while those categories are coming in here, I want to offer my thanks to the McDuffie family once again. Obviously, the J.D. McDuffie book was tremendous experience. It's now in its 2nd edition. It's available on Amazon. If you forgive all the plugs in the show, it's just kind of the way this went. But really, working on that book and now being able to work on other books, the Derek Cope book still in the works here, working on getting that one set up and so forth, has been a dream come true, being able to share these stories and meet with other people who are passionate about these stories. And, I've been able to find and access a lot of information, from the McDuffie family, not to mention, of course, first and foremost, being able to interview a lot of these people to make these projects the very best that they could be. Recently, I was they had the estate sale for J.D. McDuffie over in Sanford just a couple weeks ago. I was bidding on a couple items, just kind of seeing stuff there. And I was very touched that they set aside something for me here. This came in the mail here. And they said to consider it a gift, I was told from them. And I certainly do. And I really do appreciate it. This shirt here with the old Winkle Motorsports team here in 1986 and 1987. Tom Winkle was a car dealer out of Defiance, Ohio, that invested in J.D. McDuffie's team. And he ran this very different scheme that's kind of like, I'm colorblind, so apologies to those of you out there. To me, it looks like kind of a dark red or kind of like a medium red with like a gray pattern on there. Very different paint scheme on it. And they actually made shirts out of it. Now, one thing that's very interesting on this one, and I pointed this out on the Patreon here, you'll notice that there's a black mark here on the sponsor, on the quarter panel here behind the numbers. This is very different from the other shirts. The other shirts that were at the sale had the Tom Winkle logo. That's where that would be. But in this particular case, this one has actually been marked out, and I assume probably marked out back then. This looks like it's brand new. It's still got the original silver tag here on this one, representing the company that made it. And what happened, unfortunately, is that this partnership didn't end on good terms. There's some information I can say about that and some that I can't. But basically, the short details for the book there is that they parted ways. Winkle was interested in getting this team to perform at a certain level. He had ambitions of being the next Rick Hendrick, being a car dealer, trying to get into NASCAR and work his way in there. But then, along the way, they brought this other driver, Steve Chrisman, on, started to kind of bring the resources over to him. And ultimately what ended up happening is that Winkle took back all of the resources that he invested in the team, with one exception. And the one exception was a former Richard Childress Pontiac that was actually made for Dale Earnhardt. In 1986, when they brought in the Pontiac 2+2, Childress actually experimented, at least this is what I was told from a couple people that I interviewed. They actually experimented with running Pontiac 2+2s instead of the Chevy Monte Carlo. Can you imagine that? Earnhardt in that? And they had this rear steer car they put together, and they were going to run it out there, and ultimately didn't work out. Of course, they stayed with Monte Carlo, and Tom Winkle bought that Pontiac, and he brought it over when he invested in McDuffie's team, repainted it into that paint scheme on the shirt, and it was JD's car. So when Winkle and JD parted ways, Winkle took back all of his equipment except that car, and that car ended up being the last car that JD McDuffie drove in his career in that tragic race at Watkins Glen. And from pictures of the car that I've since disclosed on the NASCAR Info website, specifically, of course, the investigation that occurred after the accident, there are shots of the roll cage where there is Wrangler colored blue underneath the gray that was painted on the roll cage. That indicates that. I don't know if there's a chassis number or anything that's verified on that. I don't have that information, but that was kind of the story on that. So this is very much captures that period where, and unfortunately, this is something that happened to JD quite a bit in his career. He had a lot of different people that looked to invest in the team, a lot of different sponsors and made different promises. And unfortunately, for one reason or another, they just didn't work out. And ultimately this was one of the last. This was the one that ultimately led to, he pretty much just ran his own team at that point. That's when Rumpel's kind of even had to scale back their sponsorship as the costs in the sport were increasing. And that turning point really was about when this shirt was made. So big thank you to Linda and Wendy McDuffie. They sent this over. I really, really touched by it. So I really appreciate that. And definitely keeping that in the collection. I'm gonna have to figure out something to do with these items that I collected from JD McDuffie's career. I'd like to put together some kind of display for where other people can see these things and stuff like that. But in the meantime, while I figure that out, don't mind showing it to you guys here on the show here tonight. And I definitely wanted to bring that up here at the same time. Those of you who don't know, next week for the Southern 500 weekend will be the unveiling of the J.D. McDuffie Memorial Mural, which will be in downtown Sanford. Unfortunately, I won't be able to attend there, but I know there's a lot of people that will. A lot of people that were former crew members, a lot of team members and everything, Linda herself. They're doing a lot of great work over there. I'm helping however I can remotely here. I worked on a press release for them to kind of spread the word on that. I'm glad that that's been getting plenty of attention. And just kind of doing what I can to kind of help promote it there. I'd love to be there, just unfortunately didn't work out. Don't have enough hours of vacation at work to kind of break away there. But I'm looking to, again, really kind of, help however I can on that. And certainly we're going to make a trip out there at some point to certainly see the mural there. It looks beautiful from the pictures I've seen on Facebook. I understand a local artist has been involved in that. It's going to be very exciting next week. So if you're in the Sanford area, I highly recommend checking it out there. There's going to be, they've even dedicated that day, Labor Day this year, as JD McDuffie Day, which is something that has not happened in Sanford since, I believe, 1966, back in the early years of JD's career. They actually did something very similar, an actual whole carnival where they were actually helping out JD. He just had a car that wrecked. They needed to kind of get, a car piece back together, similar to kind of what came up in the Buddy Arrington video that was posted this week. But that was kind of the story there as well. So, kudos to that. Actually, I don't have to be vague on the details. Let me pull up the promo here. There's a poster, so I can give you that there. It doesn't hurt to certainly spread the word. I think I had it on my, what was it? I think it was on my Twitter feed that he reached out to me. Let me find that. And where is he? I think this is him. Hang on. Here we go. Let's see. So JD McDuffie Day mural unveiling and cruise in presented by Haggerty. So big thanks to the folks at Haggerty for contributing to that there. There's going to be looks like a car show. This is going to be Monday, September 5th from 12 p.m. to 6 p.m. This will be at 329 Carthage Street in Sanford, North Carolina. For more information, I'll publish this as well. For more information, call 910-217-2060. So again, this is the JD McDuffie Day. I'll pull it up on my phone here. This is just the little the poster that I had on here. I'll tweet this as well. I think I retweeted it earlier, but I'll post it again here, certainly as we get closer to it. JD McDuffie Day, the mural unveiling, Monday, September 5th. That is the day after the Southern 500 next week. From 12 p.m. to 6 p.m., 329 Carthage Street, Carthage Street in Sanford, North Carolina. Again, for more details on that, call 910-217-2060. And there's a benefit. I believe they're doing a fundraiser there as well. They're actually looking to start a JD McDuffie Memorial Scholarship for a local trade school there as well. So a lot of great promotions working on that. And again, kudos to the folks on that. So yeah, if any of you guys are out there in that area, that would be definitely something to check out as well. So I guess we've delayed far enough. We can go into our trivia section here a little bit. The track looks pretty good. We're up to the end of stage 2 on the replay of the race here in the background. And we'll jump into that. Alrighty. Which category is the leader here, Beast of Metal? I saw we had a couple for wild card, a couple for teams. I think I see 3 for wild card. We might be going wild again here. Okay. Oh, I see your rankings here. Wild card and teams for 3, tracks for 2, drivers and pits 1. Vote remains open. Yep, I'm with you there. We'll go ahead and close it now. Okay, teams with 4. Okay, we'll close it now. We'll go ahead and do 4 for teams here. And we'll do some teams questions for you guys. And again, if you have any other questions from anything else from the show here tonight or on that, don't hesitate to let me know. And we'll do that. For those of you just tuning in, we did start the show here. Basically, we're about an hour and 5 minutes into it here. So we started it during the delay. The track is looking way better. They're showing, I guess they really don't want Cody Ware to finish 3rd. That's all I can think of on this. The weather delay just looks like it's wrapping up here. I see your posts on here. Packer saying between about 40 and 60 minutes for the restart here of the race. Let me check Packer's page here too, see if he has any other details here as well. Officials say they're making good progress. Sounds like they should be ready in 40 to 60 minutes. These are the cars that are still listed as running, according to Packer's posted just 27 seconds ago. Austin Dillon, Harvick says they won't resume. Oh, well, that is a kick in the seat there for them. They were currently running in the 2nd spot. Harvick's team heavily damaged after the involvement of that incident. Landon Castle in 3rd. That explains why Harvick was in street clothes there during that interview, I suppose. So Landon Castle would then move up to the 2nd, he would move to the 2nd spot. Cody Ware to 3rd. Cindric in 4th. Kyle Busch, Martin Truex, BJ McLeod, David Reagan, Noah Gragson, Harrison Burton, Tyler Reddick, Ty Dillon, Eric Jones. Then after that, the lapped cars that would still be running, Bubba Wallace would be 1 lap down in position for the lucky dog. I'm not sure if this would thus give him the lucky dog. I would probably at this point. Ty Gibbs, who is 2 laps down, along with Joey Logano. Alex Bowman is 3 laps down. Cole Custer, 4 laps down. Dave Blaney, gosh, I got to get in the right era here, folks. Ryan Blaney, 6 laps down, and Corey LaJoie, not Randy, 23 laps down, further back in the lineup there. Those are the only drivers that seem like they would still be listed as running at this point, who have not been eliminated from the race. So very few cars, but very few laps, and maybe that will equate to a relatively quick finish here, and we will certainly find out. But that being posted by Pocris just a minute ago here. 4:10 p.m. Eastern start we're looking at. Okay, so we're looking at a 1:10 p.m. Pacific time start. It is 12:30 p.m. Pacific right now. And yeah, I'm seeing shadows coming off the cars. I mean, again, kudos to the fans and to NASCAR for sticking this one out. I guess they didn't want that race ending in such a bizarre way, but it could very well be Austin Dillon still pulls off this win. He probably has some of the least damage of some of the other drivers that were involved in this, but we're going to find out that in short order. As I was starting to mention here, what I am going to do, Last Bro will be coming in here, so he prefers to stay off camera, so I'll mute this and turn the camera off. We'll put the loading screen up here. We'll wait till the end of the race, and then we'll wrap up the show here. Unless it gets disconnected, maybe we'll just start another show here at the end point there, and we'll finish up our discussion of the race at that point, and we'll go from there. So we'll still do a wrap up after the race is over with, but of course it won't be a full length show. We'll just do it very briefly. That's why we'll do these other segments here in the meantime. But without further ado, let's do some team questions here on the trivia here. Let's get, what make of car, first question here, what make of car did Buddy Baker drive in 1970 to NASCAR's speed record? That is our first question here. What make of car did Buddy Baker drive in 1970 to NASCAR's speed record? That is the question. NASCAR now showing replay of the last couple of laps before the wreck there, back when Justin Haley was leading the race. So we're about to see the big wreck here again in just a few moments. But again, that first question, what make of car did Buddy Baker drive in 1970 to NASCAR's speed record? That is our first question. Alrighty. And hang on here, folks. Let me test the mute on this. Okay. All right. You guys couldn't hear me drinking on there, could you? Because I know that this microphone picks up anything. You know, a cricket farts across the room. It's going to be picked up on this thing. So yeah. All right, here we go. What make of car did Buddy Baker drive in 1970 to NASCAR's speed record? Okay, I guess it's for Dodge. The Dodge Daytona or Plymouth Superbird, Ford, Winged Wonder, Peugeot. Getting all the fun answers here. Here we go. Okay. What make of car did Buddy Baker drive in 1970 to NASCAR's speed record? The answer is Dodge. You don't have to go into the manufacturer, but kudos to those of you who did. Dodge is indeed the correct answer. Zachary Leffler. Oh, and A79. Oh, Brian, I think you were the first one on that too. And we got that. So Dodge is indeed the correct answer there. No glugs were heard. Okay, that's good. Alrighty. Let's see. Next question. What owner did Dale Earnhardt drive T-Birds for in 1982 and 1983? What owner did Dale Earnhardt drive T-Birds for in 1982 and 1983? What owner did Dale Earnhardt drive T-Birds for in 1982 and 1983? I haven't eaten yet today, folks, so I am very much looking forward to them wrapping this thing up. So fingers crossed here. Goodness. What owner did Dale Earnhardt drive T-Birds for in 1982 and 1983? Got several guesses for Bud Moore. Here we go. And the answer is indeed Bud Moore, little Bud Moore. And the big wreck has happened from earlier in the race. So we're going to, actually, they've synced it up pretty well. We're going to be pretty close to when the race actually should restart by the time they wrap up this replay of the earlier part of the race here. What owner did Dale Earnhardt drive T-Birds for in 1982 and 1983? Sun is shining. That's fantastic news. That is fantastic news. So yeah, we're going to try something a little different here, folks. So yeah, we're going to go back to the loading screen and mute this when the race gets going. And then we'll jump back in afterwards and just finish off here on the show. And we'll give it a try. We'll see if it works. If it doesn't work, we'll try something else. I'll tweet updates if that ends up being the case. What owner did Dale Earnhardt drive T-Birds for in 1982 and 1983? Little Bud Moore is a different guy? Oh, okay. I thought that was his nickname. Okay, never mind. Okay, correction on that. Thank you for catching that, A79. What owner did Dale Earnhardt drive T-Birds for in 82 and 83? That was Bud Moore. Okay, here we go. Here's a good one. Next question here, folks. Oh, okay, that's from earlier. Make sure that's not the current thing here. What 5'7" driver first drove for Hendrick Motorsports in 1996? What 5'7" driver first drove for Hendrick Motorsports in 1996? All right. I'm going to send an update here to Last Bro in the meantime. Uh, 30 minutes. It's like about 30 minutes, probably. Yeah. Streaming. Okay. Alrighty. Just an update so it doesn't get turned around there. Okay, next question again. What 5'7" driver first drove for Hendrick Motorsports in 1996? Yeah, tricky question. Tricky question. Nadu, Craven, Wally, Sprague, Schrader, Terry Labonte, Paul Goldsmith. Okay, we're all over the place now. Didn't Craven drive for Larry Hedrick in 1996? This one is specifically saying Hendrick for sure. Common thing there for sure. What 5'7" driver first drove for Hendrick Motorsports in 1996? So if you're big into driver heights, you'll probably have a little bit of an inside track on this one, folks. What 5'7" driver first drove for Hendrick Motorsports in 1996? Schrader, Nadu. Okay, here we go. The answer is Jack Sprague. Jack Sprague is the correct answer. There you go. Jack Sprague. So we're looking at Truck Series ones. Didn't necessarily say it was Cup teams, although most of these seem to be Cup ones. There we go. I see. I guess my phone, you're hearing the chirps on the phone, right? I guess I got to be careful about that too, because I guess the Bluetooth is working on the phone. I saw the levels peak on that. Can I mute that? Oh, that works. There we go. We'll try that. Alrighty, Jack Sprague is indeed the correct answer. Oh, we have an update. What do we got here? Drivers to the cars at 3:50. At 3:50, so 12 minutes. Okay, so we got 12 more minutes to show here, folks. We're going to probably wrap up here with drivers to the cars. I'm going to make sure everything's copacetic here on the stream. And then I'll keep the stream open, but it will be muted and it will not have the screen going here. And then we'll jump in after the conclusion of the race and wrap this up. You know, maybe I'll break it up and maybe I'll put it into 2 streams. I think that would probably be a better idea. Things get loud in here during the end of the race, folks. I'm not sure if we want to put that on the stream. So there we go. We'll probably do that just to be safe. Maybe that'll be easier to watch. Okay. We'll do a part 2. So yeah, that'll be the plan. We'll do a 2-part stream here, folks. We'll end the stream at when they get the drivers of the cars, and then we'll do a brief wrap up here about the race winner, and we'll do that, and then that'll be it. Okay. So yes, again, drivers of their cars in about 10 minutes. Alrighty, next question here, folks. Who owns the Diamond Ridge Motorsports team? That's your next question. Who owns the Diamond Ridge Motorsports team? Yeah, I think Sprague ran a pedigree car. I guess it had to be 96 because I don't think it was the 95 Pontiac, but it was a Pontiac. So there was that. Who owns the Diamond Ridge Motorsports team? Who owns the Diamond Ridge Motorsports team? I got to update. We'll test if it makes it here. In 10 minutes. Okay, yeah, last bro will be up here in a little bit. And my phone will not send a text. That's fun. That's fun. Ah, there we go. Yeah, I got to check that too. Okay. Who owns the Diamond Ridge Motorsports team? I don't think we've had the answer to that. Oh, this is the replay from earlier. Okay. Who owns the Diamond Ridge Motorsports team? The answer is Gary Bechtel. Gary Bechtel. And a couple of you guys got that already. Glenn 7000. A79, you got it first. You got Bechtel. You got it. I believe he was just brought into the West Coast Motorsports Hall of Fame at Sears Point. When I was talking with Dr. Jerry Punch, he was actually there with Mr. Bechtel, so that was pretty cool. So yes, Gary Bechtel is the correct answer. Oh, here's a fun one. Here's a fun one, folks. Next question here. What was the sum of Morgan Shepherd and Jeff Burton's car numbers in 1998? Here's a fun one. What was the sum of Morgan Shepherd and Jeff Burton's car numbers in 1998? Yeah, this is pretty much a full-length show here, so I'm glad we started. Glad we started this when we did. So hopefully it'll be that. We'll break this up. We'll break this up into two shows here. So I know I've vacillated on that, but we'll do that. So we'll wrap this up here once the drivers get to their cars, and it looks like we're pretty close to that. I think this is the live feed now. Okay, cool. So we'll wrap it up after this question here, folks, and we'll call it good. Okay. What was the sum of Morgan Shepherd and Jeff Burton's car numbers in 1998? All right, we got good guesses. I'll leave this one up here. 107, 176, 107. The sum, yes. So if you added them together, what was the sum? Or if you added Morgan Shepherd and Jeff Burton's car numbers in 1998 together, what would be that number? So I'll let this one sit for a little longer. We got some more guesses here. And Harvick's car getting, oh man, that's a heartbreaker. You got Harvick's car sitting second, and it's getting towed out of the way. So, yeah. They can't see you, so that's cool. All righty. Do the last question, then we'll wrap it up here. All right, here we go. They can't hear you, though. What was the sum of Morgan Shepherd and Jeff Burton's car numbers in 1998? All righty, here we go. The answer is 100. 100 is the correct answer, folks. So I guess he ran the one car in 98. I thought that was 97. Maybe there was a mistake in there. Okay, regardless, we're about to go racing, folks. So that'll do it for this part of the show here. Thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in. Stay tuned for our next show. Is going to be after the finish of the race here, and we'll talk about that a little bit to wrap up things tonight. So thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in, and we'll see you in a little bit.